The text message from my daughter Maya came at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Mom, they're doing it again. Please don't come to pick up today." My hands trembled as I read it. Another day of my 12-year-old daughter begging me to stay away from her school because the other mothers made our lives hell. Another day of watching my brilliant, kind daughter shrink into herself because Caroline Prescott and her crew decided we didn't belong in Willowridge. I stared out the window of my rental cottage on Pine Street, watching the construction crews work on the massive house going up on Crestline Hill. The neighbors complained constantly about the noise, the trucks, the shadows it would cast. Caroline Prescott was the loudest complainer of all. Every day I watched those crews build my dream home, brick by perfect brick, and every day I listened to Caroline trash it like it was some monstrosity invading her kingdom. If only they knew. But Maya didn't even know the truth about what I did for work. I'd kept everything simple, quiet, normal. Just mom and daughter starting fresh after the divorce. No designer clothes, no fancy car, no bragging about my job. I believed staying under the radar would give Maya a real shot at making friends. I was so wrong. But what they didn't realize was that the house they complained about most was mine. Quick favor before we move on. Over 90% of people watching right now haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying this story, tap that like button and hit subscribe. It's completely free, and it helps this channel reach more amazing listeners like you. Already subscribed? You're the best. Thank you so much. Now, let's get back to it. Caroline Prescott ruled Willowridge Elementary like a queen. 45 years old, married to flashy developer Richard Prescott, she drove a white Lexus GX and made sure everyone knew their family income down to the dollar. Her daughter Blair was a carbon copy. Pretty, mean, and absolutely convinced she was better than everyone else. The first time I met Caroline was at the school coffee morning in September. I'd worn jeans and a Target sweater driving my old Prius. Maya had been so excited to make new friends. "Oh, you must be the renter," Caroline said, looking me up and down like I was something stuck to her shoe. "Pine Street, right? Such a cozy neighborhood." The other mothers giggled. Monica Walsh, who drove a BMW X5, added, "We were wondering who moved into Mrs. Henderson's old place. It's been empty so long." "Well," Caroline continued, stirring her latte with a manicured nail, "I'm sure you'll fit right in. We're very welcoming to all types here." All types, like I was some exotic animal? I could have ended this conversation right then and there. One phone call to my assistant, one mention of Ellison Atelier, and Caroline's smug smile would have crumbled. But something held me back. "What does your husband do?" asked Monica Walsh, leaning forward eagerly. "I'm divorced," I said simply. The silence was deafening. Caroline's smile turned sharp as a knife. "Oh my. That must be challenging, financially, I mean, especially in a town like this where everything is so expensive." "I manage," I replied. "I'm sure you do, sweetie. We single mothers have to stick together, don't we? Though I have to say, it's brave of you to move somewhere so aspirational." Aspirational. Like I was pretending to be something I wasn't. But soon they'd learn exactly what I was pretending not to be. The exclusion started immediately. Birthday party invitations that never came. Playdates Maya heard about but wasn't invited to. Group texts about school events that somehow skipped my number. But it was worse than simple exclusion. It was systematic destruction. The first incident happened during lunch. Maya came home with her sandwich untouched, eyes red from crying. "What happened, baby?" "Blair and her friends sat at my table," Maya whispered. "They said I smelled like poor people. Then they moved to another table and told everyone not to sit with me because poverty might be contagious." I felt rage surge through my chest like molten metal. My hands clenched so hard my nails drew blood. "And then?" I managed to ask. "I ate alone. Again," Maya's voice cracked. Mrs. Peterson saw me crying and asked if I was okay. But what could I say? That my classmates think I'm dirty because we rent our house? I could have ended this with one phone call. One mention of Ellison Atelier, and every mother in that school would be begging for Maya's friendship. But I'd wanted her to experience authentic relationships, not transactions. The second incident was worse. Maya came home without her backpack. "Where's your bag, sweetheart?" Blair took it during recess. She said she was checking to see if poor kids carry different things. Maya's voice was hollow, defeated. She dumped everything out in front of everyone. My books, my pencils, Her voice broke. My lunch money fell out and she said, "Oh, look, charity case money." I knelt beside her, watching my daughter disappear before my eyes. She'd stopped eating breakfast. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She flinched when her phone buzzed. "Did you get your things back?" "Yeah, but..." Maya looked at the floor. "Someone took a picture of my stuff scattered on the ground. It's probably on Instagram by now." That night I held her as she sobbed into my shoulder. Her ribs felt sharp under my hands. She'd lost weight. "Mom, can we please move? I know you like it here, but I can't do this anymore." As I held my crying daughter, I felt something shift inside me. I'd tried to protect her by hiding who we really were. Instead, I'd exposed her to a cruelty I had the power to stop. The third incident shattered something inside me. Maya walked into our cottage with grass stains on her uniform and tears streaming down her face, but this time she was shaking. "Maya, what happened?" "They cornered me after school, Blair, Sophie, and Emma, they said..." She gulped air between words. "They said you're probably a drug dealer or something because how else would a single mom afford to live here? They said they were protecting the school by making sure everyone knew what we really were." My vision went white with fury. These children, these cruel, entitled children, were destroying my daughter's spirit with lies while I sat on millions of dollars and a reputation that could buy and sell their parents' entire social circle. And then Blair pushed me down and said, "Stay down where you belong." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Mom, I wanted to fight back, but I didn't know how. What if she's right? What if we don't belong here?" That night, Maya asked if we could move again. I held her as she cried herself to sleep, and I made a decision. Tomorrow, everything would change. Meanwhile, Caroline's campaign against us intensified with every passing day. It started with the WhatsApp group. I only learned about it when another mother, Lisa Richards, accidentally sent me a screenshot meant for someone else. The group was called Willowridge Moms Verified and had 37 members. I wasn't one of them. The messages were surgical in their cruelty. Caroline: "Just a reminder about Emma's birthday party this weekend. Please confirm RSVPs so I can plan seating." Jennifer: "Should I ask about the new family?" Caroline: "The renters? Let's keep this intimate. You understand." More screenshots trickled in from guilty mothers. Caroline was orchestrating a social siege. Caroline: "I'm concerned about some families at school. We need to protect our children's values." Monica: "What do you mean?" Caroline: "Some people move to neighborhoods they can't afford, hoping to social climb. It sends the wrong message to our kids about earning your place." The coffee shop encounters became Caroline's personal theater. Every Tuesday she held court at the Starbucks next to school, timing her arrival perfectly with mine. "Oh, Nora," she'd call out loudly. "Still driving that little Prius? So environmentally conscious of you? Richard says electric cars are the future for people who prioritize differently." Her audience would giggle on cue. "You know, we should really have you over sometime. Our house is probably too big. You might feel uncomfortable. But Richard's always saying we should be charitable to those less fortunate." Each word was chosen to cut, to establish hierarchy, to remind everyone listening exactly where I stood in her world. The cruelest part was how she recruited allies. Caroline had a gift for making other mothers complicit in her cruelty by framing it as protection. "I'm worried about Maya," she told Jennifer Williams at pickup, loud enough for me to hear. "Poor thing seems so withdrawn. It must be hard when your mother can't provide the same stability as other families." Jennifer nodded sympathetically, shooting me pitying glances. "Children need consistency," Caroline continued. "When parents are struggling financially, kids always suffer. Maybe Maya would benefit from spending time with more stable families. Like charity work, but social." She was painting herself as Maya's savior, while using pity as a weapon. And every single day, I watched the construction crews build my masterpiece on Crestline Hill, while Caroline stood 20 feet away, trashing it. "That monstrosity is ruining our entire neighborhood," she announced to anyone within earshot. "Whoever's building it has no respect for community standards. Probably some tech nouveau riche with more money than taste." Every day I watched those crews build my dream home, brick by perfect brick. And every day I listened to Caroline trash it like it was some monstrosity invading her kingdom. I'd stand at my cottage window, coffee in hand, watching the foundation pour while Caroline's voice carried across the street. "Richard says it's going to cast shadows over half the hillside. Selfish, really. Some people don't understand that wealth comes with responsibility." The irony was exquisite torture. She was insulting my life's work, my artistic vision, my dream home, while simultaneously destroying my daughter's childhood out of pure spite. One morning, I was on a client call discussing the wine cellar specifications when Caroline appeared on the sidewalk with 3 other mothers, gesturing angrily at the construction site. "The noise alone is inconsiderate," she declared. "And the dust. Sophie's developed allergies. Richard's thinking about filing a complaint with the city." I could have walked outside right then and introduced myself as the architect. Could have mentioned that the so-called nouveau riche owner was standing 30 feet away. But watching Caroline dig her own grave was sweeter than any comeback I could have planned. The next morning I got the call from school. There had been another incident. Maya was in the principal's office and I needed to come immediately. I was in the middle of a client meeting when my assistant knocked. "Mrs. Ellison, Maya's school called. Emergency!" I apologized to the tech mogul and his wife who'd flown in from San Francisco specifically to discuss their new estate, grabbed my keys, and headed straight to Willowridge Elementary. I didn't have time to change. I was still wearing the tailored navy suit and Louboutin heels I'd chosen for the presentation. 5 mothers clustered near the school entrance beside their BMW X5s and Audi Q7s. Caroline stood in front of her white Lexus, gesturing dramatically as she held court. Then I pulled up in my matte black G-Wagon. Every conversation stopped. The contrast was brutal and immediate. Their cars, which probably felt expensive to them, suddenly looked like toys next to mine. I stepped out, and Caroline's face went pale. "Well," she said, her voice higher than usual, "I suppose even renters can afford nice outfits for special occasions." But her confidence was cracking. The other mothers stared at my car with barely hidden envy. "Caroline," I said calmly, "how lovely to see you." Before she could respond, 8-year-old Tommy Richards broke away from a group of kids and pointed at my car. "Whoa! Mom, look at that G-Wagon! That's like super expensive, right?" His mother Lisa was already staring. "Tommy, don't point," she said automatically, then looked at me more carefully. "Wait, are you, oh my God, you're Nora Ellison from Ellison Atelier." The words hit the group like a bomb. Margaret Chen gasped out loud. "You designed the Harrington estate, the one in Architectural Digest." A teenager walking by with friends stopped dead. Did she say Ellison Atelier? My mom's been trying to get a meeting with them for 2 years. They only take clients with billionaire-level wealth. Jennifer Williams was frantically Googling on her phone. Oh my God, Nora Ellison, Forbes calls her the architect to the ultra-wealthy. Waiting list of 3 years. Caroline's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. That's impossible, Caroline whispered. You're renting that little cottage on Pine Street. Temporarily, I said with a gentle smile. When you design dream homes for a living, you tend to take your time with your own. I could have humiliated her then and there, but I didn't need to. The truth was doing that all by itself. The silence was deafening. Every mother in that circle was recalculating everything they thought they knew. The construction on Crestline Hill, Margaret whispered. The one that's been going on for months. Every detail designed by me, I confirmed. From the infinity pool overlooking the valley to the hillside wine cellar modeled after my grandfather's vineyard in Sonoma. He was a field laborer. Blair Prescott had appeared at her mother's side and was staring at me in horror. The same girl who'd once sneered at Maya online as Budget Barbie now stood frozen beside her mother, watching her empire crumble. Mom! Blair whispered urgently, tugging Caroline's sleeve. Mom, that's Maya's mom. We were really mean to Maya. Caroline finally found her voice. You could have told us who you were. I tilted my head thoughtfully. Could I have? Because when Maya mentioned that Mommy designed houses, your Blair told her that poor people couldn't be architects. The other mothers shifted uncomfortably. Their BMWs and Audis, which had felt like symbols of success, now looked exactly like what they were, middle-tier luxury for people still worried about impressing their neighbors. I wanted Maya to have a normal childhood, I continued. I thought if we kept things simple, she could make friends based on who she is, not what I do. I was naive to think that was possible in a place where children judge each other by their parents' car payments. Lisa Richards stepped forward eagerly. Mrs. Ellison, I don't suppose you'd consider our project? We've been on waiting lists. I smiled politely. I'll have my assistant send some information. Though I should mention, the Crestline project will cast quite dramatic shadows across the valley, especially over the Prescott property around sunset. Caroline's face went white as she realized what I was saying. The very house she'd been complaining about for months was casting that shadow on purpose. Mine. And Caroline, I added, just loud enough for everyone to hear, your property sits partially on land owned by my holding company. I bought the parcel quietly when it came up for sale 5 years ago. Caroline blinked rapidly, her composure cracking completely. That's impossible. You might want to review your deed. Section B, backyard easement, the part where you host your little garden parties. Technically, you've been entertaining on my land. The collective gasp was audible. Margaret Chen's hand flew to her mouth. Jennifer Williams actually took a step back. Don't worry, I added smoothly, my voice calm as silk. I'm not interested in lawsuits, just boundaries. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Sometimes it just has perfect timing. Caroline's legs looked unsteady. The woman who had spent months establishing social hierarchies had just learned that the person at the bottom of her pyramid actually owned the ground she stood on. Just then, Maya emerged from the school building with her teacher. My daughter had been crying, but when she saw me, she straightened her shoulders with quiet dignity. Ready to go home, sweetheart? I asked, extending my hand. Maya walked past the group of mothers without a word and took my hand. As we reached the G-Wagon, she looked up at me with those serious dark eyes. Mom? Are you famous or something? No, baby, I replied, helping her into the passenger seat. I just build beautiful things. The transformation was swift and complete. Within days, Maya's bullies became her biggest fans. The same kids who had mocked her for living in a rental were now bragging about knowing the architect's daughter. But the real change was in Maya herself. She walked taller, spoke with confidence, and when Blair tried one last cruel comment, Maya simply said, "My mom builds houses for people who actually matter." What does your mom do besides gossip? 6 months later, our house on Crestline Hill was finished. Maya's bedroom had its own balcony overlooking the infinity pool, and she spent hours there reading, finally at peace in a space that was truly ours. The Prescotts moved away 2 months after our house was completed. Apparently, the shadows made their backyard unusable for entertaining. Caroline never apologized, not to me, not to Maya. As I tucked Maya into bed one night in our beautiful new home, she looked up at me with those wise eyes and asked, "Mom, why didn't you tell them who you were from the beginning?" I thought about it, watching the last light of sunset paint the walls of her room. From her balcony, the old cottage on Pine Street was now just a cozy speck in the distance. Because I wanted you to see who people really are when they think you have nothing to offer them, and I wanted you to learn that your worth has nothing to do with their opinions. And now I know? Now you know that the most important thing you can build is your own character. Everything else is just architecture. She smiled and closed her eyes, safe in a house built not just with stone and steel, but with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your true value. Sometimes the best revenge isn't cruel or dramatic. Sometimes it's simply living so authentically that other people's small-mindedness becomes irrelevant. The shadows we cast aren't always about blocking light. Sometimes they're about creating space for better things to grow.